I couldn't help feeling a bit of deja vu when watching Alien Romulus. The film starred Cailee Spaeny, who played the wife of Elvis Presley in Priscilla, where she too was trying to escape something that had turned monstrous. The feeling of deja vu didn't stop there. There were also similarities to director Fede Alvarez's previous film, Don't Breathe, but this time somewhat repurposed as a heist movie in space. In both Don't Breathe and Alien Romulus, Fede Alvarez directed a story of a group of young people involved in a plan to go inside a building to steal something, and in both films the heist goes horrifically wrong when the inhabitants of the buildings targeted for their heist were proficient killers, more than capable of taking everyone out with the greatest of ease. Hell, both films even involved the quote-unquote monsters using one of the young people to bear children for them. Wow! How much more from other films could Alien Romulus borrow from? In any case, Alien Romulus was still a fair sci-fi horror outing at the cinema. What did you think of the film? Was it an overall enjoyable experience, or was it ultimately as hollow and empty for you as it was for me? Please share your comments of Alien Romulus in the comments section. After some thought, however, I came to the conclusion that there were two important points that I felt affected the film negatively. First, the film seemed to follow a trend that is older than we may realize, but more common in practice throughout today's pop culture landscape, a trend known as interpolation. And second, the lack of a well-written setup for the introduction of the main character of Alien Romulus, Rain, played by Cailee Spaeny. If you haven't heard of the word interpolation, I recommend to check out the link in the description to see a video by popular YouTuber RIC BEATO define and display a trend that highlights this trademark of Gen Z and its popular culture, especially in the music industry. In a nutshell, interpolation, common in the music industry, involves re-recording elements from an existing song, such as melodies or lyrics, rather than using the original recording. This technique allows artists to create new music that pays homage to or builds upon previous works. It is often used as a cost-effective alternative to sampling, as it generally involves lower licensing fees. A lot of the film's key scenes in Alien Romulus add up to the movie industry's equivalent of interpolation. While the film executes the aesthetic of Alien and Aliens well, the attempt of repurposing classic scenes and lines in the hopes of striking a nostalgic chord for the first generation of fans of the franchise like myself, having grown up in the 80s. Trying, however, to win over the good graces of fans with such quote-unquote service might not serve Alien Romulus in the long run, and as a result limits its own shelf life for fans of the franchise. The originals were carefully timed and crafted to elicit the right emotional reactions for the benefit of the story at hand, rather than offer fan service. Why experience these classic scenes in a pale comparison when you can experience those classic scenes for yourself as originally intended in the vastly superior originals? While the problem of interpolation is one thing, perhaps a worse crime in terms of the craft of writing is the poor setup for the main character, Rain. It was great to see her character, as resourceful as she was, but without the proper setup, her actions felt more like plot conveniences rather than meaningful turning points of character development. I think the film could have benefited from taking a cue from the film RRR in terms of how to introduce characters, especially the main character. The introduction of Rama in RRR was like a masterclass in cinematic storytelling. No dialogue, just visual representation of the challenges that awaited him, which were both placed behind him as well as in front of him. One challenge in the form of an angry mob out for revenge, and the other an army of colonial soldiers holding a country under their terror and control for the exploitation of the country's people and resources for their own selfish empirical needs. RRR sets the stage for the character of Rama, with enough understanding of what he is capable of doing while leaving enough mystery for us to want to know more about his motivations. It's one of the best introductions in recent films and certainly is a definitive guide as well as a measuring stick of character introductions for any writer. In contrast, we have the setup for Rain, which was dull and unimaginative. In her introduction, she wakes from a dream of watching the sunset on a distant planet. This opening scene involved zero conflict, and because of this, there were no hints or displays of any of her abilities to confront a challenge. From there, she enters a facility to get clearance to leave the mining planet she was working on. However, she's told that she'll need to stay an additional 6 years because of labor shortage. Again, this scene has little conflict as she leaves the facility disappointed, but without putting up much of a fight. Instead, any sort of fight she displays for the audience is in her saving her synthetic android ND from adolescence by just shouting them away. Furthermore, later on in the film, when she has to go into action, there was no build-up of anticipation because we had nothing in her setup for us to recall or remember, so that when the characters faced the threats of the xenomorphs, we couldn't feel relief or disappointment from either successful or failed attempts at overcoming their situations. Like the old adage goes, first impressions last. So based on what they showed us earlier as either a teaser or full-blown display of the abilities of the characters, Rain in action could only bring up memories of Ripley in action. As a result, we're left with just standard escape sequences that were par for the course. Run, hide, shoot, repeat. Rather than an orchestration of increasing tension that just has us cheering for the heroes to make their stand or fearing for their demise. Just have a look at the second film in the Alien franchise, Aliens, when Ripley keeps advising caution that goes unheard, then finally forces those ahead of her on the chain of command to get out of her way so she can make the save. Even that early scene of Ripley operating the loading machine helped make the scene of her using the machine to fight the alien Queen Mother not just easier to digest, but a moment of great anticipation to see how the fight progresses when both sides are more evenly matched. In contrast, having Rain unleash a barrage of bullets against the xenomorphs with guns that had no setup earlier in the film came across as just a plot convenience, rather than a carefully crafted plant and payoff story arc designed to develop into a memorable action-adventure moment to thrill us into revisiting the film time and again because of the emotions it drew out of us based on the characters' journeys into facing seemingly impossible odds. I think in the long run, the success of Alien Romulus will only strengthen the connection to the originals of the Alien franchise, Alien and Aliens, rather than making a new fan base or a legitimate inclusion to the library of the Alien franchise. If that's true, and if that were the true intentions of making the film Alien Romulus, then I would say mission accomplished. Overall, Alien Romulus felt more like a cash grab rather than a deepening or expanding of the Alien franchise because of its copy and paste of beloved original films rather as key components to its narrative than to be a completely new film unto itself. What do you think? One thing is for sure, however, the cast and crew of Alien Romulus did do an overall fantastic job with what they had to work with. And future films involving Fede, Alvarez, Cailee, Spaeny, and the rest of the cast will be able to bring filmgoers to see their work for years to come. In any case, these are just some ideas. Please let me know what you think so we can all become better writers and keep enjoying the writing process. I'm very appreciative of sharing this time with you at the RIC table. Now let's go do some writing.